Should we get into the content championship?
I think we should.
This is going to be
Yeah, you've not made it easy this week.
a headache.
You've really not made it easy this week.
At the time, I thought, I was like, oh, these are going to be thrilling conversations. And then
Now
I
you're
see it,
dreading
and
them.
every week I'm like, ugh.
Why did I do this to us?
Yeah. What?
Honestly, this might be one of the worst ones
Yeah, no,
to put us
100%.
through.
So, content championship this week is Return of the Jedi versus Batman. As always, we will discuss them over 6 topics: personal relevance, how well has it aged, rewatchability, story, acting, cinematography. And I can already see where the issue is going to lie. So let's get right into it. Would you like to kick us off with the personal relevance for you, Mr. Sontal? I know you were there on the opening night of the Jedi.
Do you know what's wild? I know my parents went to a premiere of one of the Star Wars films, but I can't remember which.
83 was Return of the Jedi.
Might have been more of the... It might have been. I don't know. But personal relevance...
That to see that, and I've just seen the budget was like 43 million for that.
It's like a drop in
43 million produced that masterpiece.
Yeah. Oh, masterpiece? You saying this one already? Anyway, personal relevance. I mean, Return of the Jedi is like the peak of Star Wars memory. Like that, as a youngster watching Star Wars for the first time, like that ending in episode 6, and you know that's the end of that little trilogy, and it's like that is everything kind of wraps up in such a nice way. And it's like what hooked like it's the end of a trilogy that hooked me into Star Wars. So it's like huge personal relevance, got me in love with the world, the franchise, the universe of Star Wars. The Batman. Fucking beautiful film. I love the character of the Batman. I've always said it's one of my favorite DC characters. Loved that we got to see a new look. It's so hard though, because it's like the personal relevance for the Batman is like was while we were doing this podcast, so it was a good chunk of like we discussed it a lot. We went and saw it, like it was a build up and all this.
It was the first big thing we had that was like new on the podcast as well.
Yeah, because we started.
It was like episode 10,
something like that. Yeah, because we started after Spider-Man. This was like the first big film.
Yeah,
and it's like there was a lot of build up to that film, and it smashed expectation, like our expectations, and it's tough. It really is tough. I think for me, I lean towards Return of the Jedi just because of like the age of it, and like it really got me into Star Wars. That's like one of the main major reasons of why I got hooked.
Yeah. Personal relevance. Return of the Jedi is iconic.
Yeah.
It is the perfect conclusion to potentially the greatest sci-fi trilogy of all time. And it's fucking good. Even the complaints from the time, like adults at the time, like, oh, Ewoks were a bit dumb, but growing up as kids, which is how old we were when we saw it, fucking love Ewoks. All of the Ewoks. I'm pissed we haven't had more Ewoks.
Yes.
That's my complaint.
Justice for Ewoks. I will strike for Ewoks.
And I mean, yeah, Return of the Jedi is something you see when you're younger, potentially before you're old enough to go to the cinema for the first time. And like, yeah, it's a canon event, Hori.
It is a canon event in my lifetime.
People like me and you don't grow up to make a podcast like this and not have a deep love for Return of the Jedi.
That's the thing, right? It's like people get a love for sci-fi and they see one of two franchises when they're young. They either watch Star Wars and fall in love with sci-fi, or they watch Star Trek and fall in love with sci-fi.
Star Wars versus Star Trek. Tale as old as time.
It's like you watch either one of those as a youngster, and you fall in love with the theme and worlds of sci-fi. So yeah, you're totally right. It's a canon
Yeah,
event.
it is absolutely. Whereas Batman, as far as I'm concerned, is the greatest live action version of Batman we've ever had. And I get like it's very different to the Christopher Nolan films, which are also stunning.
Hmm.
But we got to see more of what makes Batman so unique in his detective skills, rather than just a superhero with really good action.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so much better for me. And I mean, let's be honest, Robert Pattinson fucking slays in that role. And that's before we even get on to like the secondary cast.
Do you know what's? Oh, it is, and it's Return of
Andy
the
motherfucking
Jedi.
Circus.
Yeah. Return of the Jedi was a canon event for us. The Batman was a canon event for the podcast.
It's rough. I do think personal relevance does have to go to Return of the Jedi,
Yeah,
but it's not like it blows it out of the water. It's just the nature of what
it
Return of
was
the
it,
Jedi
it
is.
was first.
Yeah. How well it's aged. I mean, I think there's an obvious winner for this purely because nothing has aged as well as the original Star Wars trilogy.
Agreed.
I,
And
I still watch them to this day, and I'm baffled by how well the practicals and the puppeteering and everything holds up.
yeah,
It is beyond insane.
it's considering other films in that period look so dated now in their like VFX or how they've done practical.
But
It's
it's
like
like you look, what's it called?
there's
Clash of
so
the Titans, the 1981 film. That at the time was one of the like most impressive put together films. And you look at that now and you're like, oh my god, that looks like shit. And that was like as impressive as Star Wars at the time, but Star Wars has aged well, and that is what everything else looks like.
yep. It's the fact that like
Um,
the use of practical and props and miniature like has played off. And also just the story of that trilogy as the years have gone by and people have really looked and like reflected on it more. Like you really see there's such a like great story told across that trilogy.
yes.
And so many like little things that people have realized like, oh shit, like everything did balance out. Like he was the balance of the force and stuff like that. And it's like and I mean for Batman, he's not really had time to age in the great like it was a great film, still is a great film, but it's only been
It
out like
will
a year.
age well,
Yeah,
but
it's only been out a year.
yeah,
So
give it time to actually age, please.
yeah, exactly.
um, Rewatchability. Again, Star Wars wins because it's been
Yeah.
being rewatched for nearly, or just over 40 years.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like I've rewatched Star Wars multiple times and binged all of them in a rewatch. And it's like, yeah, I'd happily sit down and rewatch Batman, but I haven't yet.
So these are just the nature of them heavily weighted towards Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
I would say personal relevance is probably the closest.
Yeah.
How well it's aged is just a landslide because Star Wars is never ever going to lose a how well it's aged battle, especially the
No.
original trilogy. Rewatchability. Before Batman 2 comes out, I will rewatch the Batman again because it's a fucking masterpiece.
Before
But
Penguin comes out.
yeah, Star Wars is probably the franchise I've rewatched the most, and I'm not a big rewatcher.
Yeah. Oh, I've sat down and watched like at least the all 6 episodes back to back.
May the 4th is a thing for a fucking reason, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen. And I follow that holiday like a goddamn tradition. I watch something Star Wars related as a minimum every May the 4th.
There we go.
But now we get to the next three.
Yeah, which is where this is gonna get interesting
Yeah.
and difficult.
Uh-huh. Story.
it's so hard because it's like the Batman, great story on its own, great, great story. Really sets up the character, the deal with the Riddler, like they're all well written, dealing with a villain. We got to see this new Batman, detective skills. We got to see Gotham. We got to experience what this world was. Great film. Return of the Jedi. Great end to the trilogy. Great story to wrap up. Like the way the story was wrapped up. But it does kind of need the other two to really appreciate the story. You need to watch all three.
If you just watch Return of the Jedi and you've never seen any other Star Wars property, you are going to be confused as fuck.
It comes in at the end of a story that is spanned across three films, and taking it on just its own, while yes, it wraps up the trilogy amazingly, and it is a great end, and there's a lot of redemption and all that. On its own, you need the other two. Like it unfortunately also relies on the whole story.
It absolutely does. Um, Again, this is like the inverse of the personal relevance.
Yeah.
Yes, Batman wins, but it's not a smoke show. It is just the way it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Because we're just taking Return of the Jedi.
yeah.
We're taking
Acting, I think, might
yeah.
be as easy as how well it's aged here.
Yeah.
The acting in Star Wars, while it was never bad, it is not the level of acting performance we get out of the Batman.
No.
There are levels to this game, and while I love Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, um, Harrison Ford, everyone with all of my heart, they were not asked to pull as many emotional beats and important, tense, dramatic moments. It's a bit more. There's a bit more Shakespeareanness to
Yes.
Star Wars, which gives it a slightly hammed up feel at times, which isn't a
Yeah.
bad thing because it works, but it means the acting isn't as seamless and therefore, in my opinion, isn't as good.
I would agree on that. And I think I don't think anyone can deny that the story is what carries Star Wars to be so great. The acting
Yes.
is good. It's
But I
obviously
think
like the acting's not bad because otherwise like it wouldn't work, but like the acting is not this like incredible like top like actors and actresses pushing themselves to be like
I
this
think
incredible
we can
performance.
say I think the best way I can put it is everyone who was a major part of Return of the Jedi has had other acting roles where they acted much better. And you don't look at Return of the Jedi as their best acting performance.
No.
But I look at the Batman and that's Robert Pattinson's best acting performance.
Yeah.
Andy Serkis always delivers. Colin Farrell,
Yeah.
phenomenal. Yeah. So
Yeah.
maybe it's not like other than Robert Pattinson, maybe it's not anyone else's best acting performance, but it's definitely one that would be in the discussion.
Yeah. I would agree.
Um, and I think that's the fairest way I can put it.
Yeah, no, I think
Um,
that's fair. Sure.
Cinematography, visuals, etc., etc. It's not a discussion, is it?
I don't think so.
Batman is just
Yeah, no,
so damn pretty.
it's it's so tough because essentially the fundamentals of what makes both films why Star Wars has aged so well and why Batman looks so great is their mix of practical miniature. Well, in Star Wars they use miniatures in that way because they didn't have the VFX the same.
Yeah.
Batman uses VFX, uses the virtual stages. It,
Yeah.
but it does a lot of practical, like a lot of the
Lots
car
of
chase.
practical and then touched up.
Yeah. Also, I think just Star Wars has its look about it, but the Batman really defined its own visual feel of what Gotham feels like and what
The
this film.
the use of color.
Mm-hmm.
Even though you don't think of Batman as a particularly colorful film, you actually think about the use of the red and the green
And the
and
yellow.
everything
Yeah.
throughout it is so well put together. It is art instead of nerd art. And I don't mean that to diminish Star Wars in any way, because I fucking adore Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But Batman was done with a purely artistic approach to it visually.
Mm-hmm.
They just the people who are in charge of the visuals have turned up to make art. They don't give a fuck if it's a superhero film or the next Oscar winner. They're turning up to make art.
Yeah, the director and the lead of production, like they've turned up to make a visually, like to produce a beautiful looking film, whether it gets awards or not. And they're
Yeah.
using every bell and whistle that they can to achieve what like the best that they can. There's a reason I bought the art book for the Batman so quickly.
Yes.
Like,
And like even the use of like long continuous shots for combat,
mhm,
and like after the car chase when Penguin's upside down, you see the Batman walking towards you upside down to mimic the hanging upside down of a
mhm,
bat. Just like the choice of shots are
yeah,
just so important as well. But what that means is what I fear has happened is Star
it's
Wars
hard.
has done a clean sweep on the first three, and
Mm.
Batman has done a clean sweep on the second three.
I have a lean to
Okay,
what
so
I, if,
what this comes down to is: do you lean more towards your own personal bias, which is fine to admit, or do you lean more to the three that are more objective? I
well,
think I know which way you're gonna lean.
as it is our show,
Uh huh.
I lean to the personal bias of Return of the Jedi.
As do I, as much as it hurts.
More so as well because like Batman is amazing, but it feels more wrong to send Return of the Jedi home.
It does. It feels dirty to
It
have such a nerdy podcast and just send Return of the Jedi packing round
like the
one.
Batman is amazing, and in 10 years, maybe I would lean Batman's way because it's got time to age. But right now, like it's like Star Wars has the years on Batman that like you can't compete against.
Do you know what it is? Batman's just exited its recency bias phase. So now the
Yeah,
nostalgia bias from Star Wars is more powerful again.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it feels dirty sending either of these home when we've
It
got
does.
X-Men Origins Wolverine in one of the rounds. It feels dirty sending this home, any of these home.
Do you know what this is? This is
But
our
that's the game.
upset of the bracket.
I don't think this will upset anyone.
No, it's just the upset of the bracket in
Oh,
general. Like,
we are just upset.
yeah, we are upset that this has happened.
But Return of the Jedi does go through to the next round.